But good morning, we're the Call Guys. I'm David.
And I'm George.
We have the distinct honor this morning of being down in Charleston. We are at the headquarters and museum for the South Carolina Historical Society. This is our wonderful guest, Dr. Faye Jensen. She is the executive director, the person in charge of this organization. So good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
The Call Guys isn't your average real estate podcast.
Our mission is to give buyers and sellers the power of knowledge through their real estate transactions.
We do this by helping first-time homebuyers realize that there are more expenses that come with owning a home than just the loan.
We also understand there are many times move-up buyers and sellers have forgotten the process because it's been so long since their last real estate transaction.
We make the downsizing easy.
Once you get into the habit of working with us, the process becomes so smooth you won't mind to move.
We are also excited to share with you what all the Midlands has to offer.
Thank you for having me.
So to start it off, just give our viewers a little bit of background about what the South Carolina Historical Society is and then what your role here, what you do. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, we have been around since 1855, charged with collecting and preserving and promoting the history of the state.
Yes, ma'am.
And I am in charge of all that. We have a wonderful archives, terrific records repository that is now housed at the College of Charleston. And then we have a museum here in Charleston at the Fireproof Building. And we also do a lot for K through 12 education and just promoting history throughout the state with adult lectures and events.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about the story of the Historical Society itself. And how was it started? What has it accomplished over the years? From when it was organized up till this day?
Okay, well, in 1855, some leaders in South Carolina realized that there were state historical societies in Vermont, in a lot of New England states, in Virginia, but South Carolina didn't have one.
Okay.
And they felt like because of that, the story that of the state's role in the founding of the nation was not being told. So they came together and they decided to establish a historical society and, in their words, collect and preserve all that is relevant to the history and culture of the state.
Okay.
So they started collecting. They got off with a big bang. In 1858, they acquired the papers of Henry Lawrence.
Okay.
And being president of the Continental Congress, very significant merchant in Charleston, also someone who kept meticulous records, wonderful record keeper. So those papers have all kinds of things in them, like letters from George Washington in the field.
Wow.
A letter from Benjamin Franklin. Just really, really neat stuff, as well as a great deal of information on the trade of enslaved individuals.
Yes, ma'am.
So Henry Lawrence started it off, and after that they just started collecting, and the Pinckney family gave a good deal of material. And I guess word just got around, because by the time I came here in 2007, this collection was phenomenal.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, we had a muster roll of Francis Marion, things that just blew my mind away. A letter from John Adams to Christopher Gadsden.
Yeah.
So they've done a great job collecting. And when I came, we were mostly in archives. We functioned just out of this building, and we were bursting at the seams.
Okay.
We had big old metal map cases all in the hallways downstairs. The fire marshal did not like us. Our security consisted of ringing the doorbell. It was like a speakeasy. You had to, they'd answer the door and crack it and say, "What do you want?" "Well, I'd like to do some research, So we decided to beef that up a little bit, and because the collection was growing so quickly, we really came across a good opportunity with the College of Charleston.
Okay.
Addlestone Library was obtaining space as things were digitized.
Yes, ma'am.
And we needed space. So we partnered with them. We still own our collection, but our archives moved to Addlestone.
Okay.
And so did our archival staff. So they're there. And then we had this beautiful building And we decided to create a museum because we're in a great location, right in the middle of the historic district.
Yes, you are. We spent a little bit of running around this morning before we got here, and the charm of this city just oozes out of it, and just it's very pleasant, very enjoyable, even here in early mid-December, to be outside and just walking and enjoying it. So.
Earlier, you had talked about a fireproof building,
Yes.
and you had mentioned that this one is fireproof. Is there anything unique about that? And because Dave and I had heard that this was the first fireproof building in the United States, I believe.
We claim that. I think there's some people who debate it in New England, but we'll stick with our claim that it was the first fireproof building. Robert Mills also was the first native-born professionally trained architect in South Carolina. And he studied with James Hoban and some other people and realized fires were a real problem.
Yes, ma'am.
That, most buildings were lit by oil and by candlelight, and most of them were wooden.
Yeah.
So in Charleston, you'd have all these buildings, and one would catch on fire and a sea breeze would come along, and you'd have whole districts wiped out.
Sure.
So Mills decided to build fireproof structures. And he was commissioned to build this one as a records repository for the county. And he used as little wood as possible. I had a restoration specialist in here recently who said this building is the most like a castle of any building in Charleston. So Mills did a great job. It's withheld hurricanes, bombardment by the Union ships in the harbor, and we're still here.
Very good. So what are some of your most prized artifacts, and are there any interesting stories behind any of them?
Oh, I think they all have interesting stories, and there are some fabulous ones. It's really, really hard to choose. In the museum downstairs, we have a 1680 land deed from the Lord's Proprietors to Joseph West. And that sounds boring, but you'll have to go look at it because it's just beautifully done. It's got what we think is one of the first depictions of original floral and fauna of the state. You can see Confederate jasmine a Carolina jasmine on there. You can see a wild strawberry on there. It's just a really cool land deed. Another thing that we have that's prized is the original Slave Mark Museum. Slave Mark flag that flew in Charleston when there were auctions of enslaved individuals. And we just got back from the Smithsonian. It was on loan to the Smithsonian for 7 years. We have a ring also on loan to the Smithsonian that was used in weddings for enslaved people. We have Francis Marion's powder horn, which has etchings that he did, I assume, while he was waiting, sitting around. So he's etched his name on there and some artwork on it. The list just goes on and on. There's just too much for me to remember.